Okay. Before we return to the scene, I have to address a couple things I completely forgot at the Covenant meeting. I'm going to need a reflexive appearance etiquette roll from everyone. For making your impressions on the Covenant princes, you are allowed to spend willpower on this if you want. Standard difficulty. Holy shit.
Holy shit! I think all those successes are coming back to bite me in the ass.
And one more roll. Oh, I have Robert right here. Alright, and this
See
is...
mine? I don't see mine.
Yeah.
Did I get a 10? I think my specialty applies.
No. One success. So this is public. This is viewable by all of you when you're each making your presentation. You would have kind of gotten the idea that Thomas did a very good job presenting himself to these princes and got a lot of, approving nods. I was describing a little bit of the reactions. More specifically, Thomas got a lot more approving looks. Robert got, one or two, brief smiles. Cormac, it was mostly unamused, uninterested faces on the princes. And Elenid caught the most uncertainty, despite the impressive record displayed by Kincaid. Elenid was probably the least cordial overall, just in her mannerisms, in her, the way she presented herself. Overall, it was very visible that it did not go over well with the princes. I'll leave it to each of you to decide how you personally react to that, but it was not to the level you would have expected for that encounter, unfortunately for her. And secondly, since you all have your rings, the rings of the gauntlet, you may each add 3 dots of status to your backgrounds for as long as you wield these rings, and can add them as dice to any social encounters where your status is relevant to whom you're speaking. Alright, and are there any questions about that? Okay, and we will segue back to the present. We return to the same night on which we left, early in the evening, in the county of Dorset, not far from the burnt estate of Gaetan de Corvo, as we see a dashing young noble running quickly through the fields after a horse that seems to have been spooked. Robert de Vere, you ran off past your new coterie to chase this horse, which had a good head start on you when it got spooked and galloped off into nearby woods. And as I recall, you are using celerity to multiply your speed?
Yes.
Okay, then I will take a blood point from you as you activate that to actually go at supernatural speed. And if you mark that off, you're able to move much faster. You're able to gain ground on this creature, but the speeds you're both going at mean that by the time you catch up to it, you're already a good half mile away from the estate where it looked like Cormac tackled someone, and you're getting into the thicket of the nearby forest edge. But at last, when you do corner it, you see that it rears up and turns away back towards you, and you see that it has run into a pack of wolves. It has run almost into the middle of them, and it panics and turns back to you, but it sees you and it turns around. It's pacing between you and them, and it neighs and it rears up defensively against all sides, clearly frightened and not sure where to go. The wolves are circling it and giving you a good berth of space, maintaining a perimeter. What do you do?
Assuming this is his horse, it should at least calm down, I would imagine. Or is there a way to calm the horse down and jump on it and get the heck out of there?
Absolutely. To calm down this horse, I'll let you use your charisma animal kin. Difficulty 7. If you do not have animal kin, it'll be difficulty
No animal
8.
kin. Okay.
Go ahead and describe Robert as he's trying to calm this horse down.
He's moving slowly towards the horse, trying to get a grip on it, making a soft clicking sound as he steps forward.
It seems to back away from you as it notices your attempts and then begins to make sideways steps away. It seems like you're not making any progress here. And you see that the wolves are getting in closer now. They're almost to the point of ignoring you to circle in closer to it. Do you think you might have one more try before these things are about to swarm your horse?
Well, if the wolves are completely focused on the horse, how many are there?
I'm going to say about 9. And you know, as they're getting closer, they have to get closer to you because you're pretty close. And a couple of them, you know, snarl and then back away from you and then closer to the horse. But they are getting closer to both of you. But they can sense something in you which keeps them at bay, at least for now.
Well, if they're uneasy, then Robert will use this moment to scare them off with level 2 presence, which name escapes me at the moment.
Dread gaze?
Yes.
Right. I believe that is a charisma intimidation. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm blanking on the difficulty there. I want to say it's willpower, but I'm not sure if that's correct. Does anyone know off the top of their head?
With courage.
Difficulty of their courage?
Courage.
We keep cutting out.
The difficulty is a combination of their wits and courage.
Thank you. Wits and courage. Okay. So I'll have you roll your charisma intimidation against a difficulty of 6. Alright, and describe Robert as he's making use of his gifts to try and frighten these things away.
Robert lets his fangs out and hisses at the wolves, shifting his face into a terrible visage.
Alright, the wolves definitely notice you, and a good number of them flee off in different directions at the sight of you. Luckily, your horse, if you turned away and didn't see this, or you think it might have fled along with them, And so now only about 4 of them remain, but they're far less brave now that there's fewer of them.
Is his horse... Robert will take a look at his horse. Is it still freaking out?
It still looks fairly scared. You haven't done anything to calm it down successfully, and it's looking for a way to escape. You think it's going to try and dart off again.
Is he within arm's grasp, or...
I mean, at celerity speed, you could easily be in arm's grasp in less than a second from this thing. It would just be a matter of overpowering it and, keeping it from bucking you off and such. Until you calmed it down or got it out of there and calmed it down. It's working off of pure instinct right now. It's still occasionally rearing up to raise its hind legs and kind of kick out several times, both towards you defensively and then towards the wolves.
He's going to try again to calm it down and have the horse just accept him so he won't have to struggle with it.
Okay. It's going to be the same roll to try again. It's going to be a raised difficulty 9.
I'm assuming animals are immune to presence.
No. It works more directly on people, but you can, I would say that you can exude things like fear or calm that most things in general will be able to appreciate on very basic levels. Certainly not as effective as something like animalism, but it might help your case.
I think it's worth a shot to do that first.
Sure, what do you want to do? Try and use your awe?
Yes, he's going to use awe to get his horse's attention so
Okay.
that that'll see him as a friend,
Yeah, charisma
as they've been
performance.
on many rides together. And the difficulty?
7 for your awe. Alright, you'll have a lot easier time trying to talk it down now. It seems to be focusing on you and calming down a bit, and the wolves are not ready to go any closer, being so few in number they are now. You think you have this time to, remount it while you have its attention, and it seems to trust you right now. At least for now.
And the horse trusts him for now. He will attempt to mount the horse, approaching the wolves with a... At this point, he's going to draw his blade. And begin approaching his horse.
The wolves seem to give you a little bit more space when you approach, and the horse seems to be focusing in on you quite intently. I'll take a single wits ride difficulty 5 just to mount it and, escape and get this horse out, keeping it relatively calm with your knowledge of, taking care of and managing horses and riding.
Okay.
Just to not completely fumble this.
Standard.
Difficulty 5. You've got its attention and it trusts you a lot more now that you're using your gifts on it, and you were very successful. Yeah, now that you make use of your gifts and you get close enough to mount it, you're able to lead it on away from these wolves, which don't dare follow you, and it listens to your commands long enough to, you sense, calm down, and within 30 seconds you're out of the woods again. You're back into the plains, and you seem to have calmed it down and to have kept it from this grisly fate. Where do you mean to go?
You will begin heading back to the burnt-down manor as a wave of relief washes over him.
All right. It doesn't take too long, and by the time you ride back, you see that it looks like your coterie is leading this, what you see is a young woman, toward the carriage, which is still a ways off, closer to the center of the estate. But you're riding up to them as they're walking, and the four of you come together in this scene.
Nice of you to join us again, Devere.
You done faffing about then?
For the moment.
Thomas wears a rather affable smile as he says this, shaking his head a bit. But he does lead Amelia up into the carriage, since she seems to be quite pliant.
Robert, this is Amelia, he says, nodding to her getting into the carriage. She's a neonate.
And she was also a type of witness at the very least. She did provide some information.
Something quite helpful, I hope.
A description of an individual. Nothing more than that.
Time will tell whether or not it's useful.
At least it's a start.
Do you often have these problems with your horse? Need to get a rein on that beast.
Not often, but I do not often put my horse in danger.
That's what horses are good for. Maybe I can show you a trick or two.
Indeed. And we have time, sure.
My brother hated me, but one thing he could never deny is that I'm an expert horseman.
I'm sure we'll find time enough for that later. For now, I'd very much like to go speak with this Gabriel she mentioned.
Yes, that discussion should prove most enlightening.
And I'm sure we're all quite road-weary anyway. Finding some way to break our fast would be prudent, I think.
I don't know about you, but I had my fill at the tavern.
That was 3 days ago.
Call me prudent.
Well, aren't you quite conservative? I think it is time for a meal.
I'm not saying I'll turn it down.
Yes, a meal would be quite nice.
In that case, Thomas will step up again onto the driver's seat of the carriage and direct the coachman to take them down into Dorchester proper.
Well, yes, sir, very good. He nods to you, not questioning at all the new person you seem to have acquired.
Out of curiosity, I can't remember, how is she dressed currently?
Very simply, very similar to the picture I provided, although not exactly in a nursemaid outfit. It's more just like a simple, I think, what did I say, a long red gown. It's definitely not, noble attire. It's very mundane, where you've seen it along the lower class frequently.
Mostly I wanted to make sure that she was, properly dressed, not threadbare like neonate Katif might be, who's basically just scraping by.
No, she doesn't look like war-torn or having ragged clothes. Like, her clothes look very simple, but they're not torn or anything. Although a little bit scuffled after being tackled to the ground, but nothing severe. Right, and the rest of you pile into the carriage with her?
Yes.
Indeed. Cormac's smiling at Amelia the whole time.
Alright, it's a snug seat. Well, actually, I should stop. Robert, you're still riding your horse, aren't you?
Yeah, still right by the caravan.
Okay, so it's not that snug. It comfortably sits, 4 people, 2 on each side on each bench, and that's about it. So the group of you are fairly close, but no one's pressed up. And throughout the ride, Amelia sits with her arms crossed and looks nervous. She kind of plays their hands steepled together and avoids eye contact.
Cormac's going to try to put her at ease with just some idle chatter. Nothing serious.
I'll have you roll charisma, empathy, difficulty 7. It's a start. You don't get many answers initially when you try to broach, simple, small talk, but by the end of your attempts, you get her to look up a couple times as she starts to engage you a little bit more. I'm still a little bit defensive. Not defensive, but definitely anxious. But after this, she is at least comfortable enough with you to speak up after a moment. That man, up in front, he made me speak when I did not wish to. Are you all old ones? The elders Gabriel spoke of.
Not elders, no. Ancille. Do you know what that word means, girl?
She shakes her head.
It means we're too young to have any impact, but too old to make mistakes.
Thomas will lean back. No one is too old to make mistakes.
Yes, that is the case. However, certain actions are judged more harshly than for the younger ones.
Then perhaps let me rephrase. Too old to make mistakes without paying for them dearly.
But do you know them? Or serve them also?
I believe that would be a yes to both.
Gabriel says they all have a bored look on their face, that nothing surprises them. Is that true?
That's true.
Thomas has a chuckle.
Though, as a bit of advice, most of our kind are always working for another of our kind. It's just the nature of the beast.
Some of them don't even know it.
Exactly.
What are you all doing down here?
There were several of our kind in the manor that burned down. We are investigating their deaths.
Were you their friends?
I have worked with them before, yes.
I'm sorry for your loss, then.
Yes, they were good warriors, and at least one of them was quite the honorable sort.
She looks to you, nodding. Well, we don't get many visitors, and I haven't sold all the things that I took there. Perhaps, if it meant something to you, you might find something of what I recovered before the brigands got there.
And perhaps something that might be of use in our investigation as well.
Yes, reviewing them would be most beneficial. Thank you very much. And she bows her head as she thanks her.
Cormac nods, but his smile faded with the mention of the dead Gauntlet members. He seems solemn now.
I have to admit I am a bit excited to see so many new visitors. Gabriel is mostly who I speak to.
Would you care to change that, Amelia?
She looks through the little slot where you're speaking. How do you mean?
I think perhaps you saw more than you think you saw. Or, at worst, someone will believe that you saw far more than you did. I think it might be best, both for our investigation and for your continued health, if you accompanied us back to London, where I can put you up with someone I trust.
I've never left Dorset. Not even when I breathed.
Would you like to?
I don't know. Let us speak to Gabriel. He knows best. And she nods a few times.
We'll certainly see if that's true.
Alright, the carriage ride only takes about half an hour or more in traveling, and she seems to open up a bit more. As you travel west, before the small town of Dorchester comes into view, the lights of the torches along the wooden walls illuminate against the night. You can see that the only building of prominence standing out amongst this town is a large church near the center. And the modest wooden gates are opened for you by a sentry soon enough, and you all are going down this main stretch of road in Dorchester as the carriage driver leads this group of you along, and by Amelia's direction you arrive in front of a two-story building with many windows and lights on inside. This is it, the Early Bird Inn. This is where Gabriel resides, and where the man John Smith came.
Well then, let's get out and stretch our legs, shall we?
Thomas is going to take a moment before he steps all the way down off the carriage. He stands full upright and looks about to see what other kind of businesses happen to occupy the central square.
Not many, and you're not really in the central square. It's just the main drag of road, and this is one of the first prominent buildings that you stop at. Mostly it's homes. You see further down there are what looks like maybe a few Fletcher shops and leather workers, or where they would work. It's a little bit too late at this point, so they're all closed down. Nothing of great significance, certainly no grand cathedrals in this town.
Thomas seems satisfied enough, though, and steps down to join the rest of them going into the inn.
Mm-hmm. Eleanor exits the carriage as well to follow along.
What does Robert do?
Robert will see that his horse is tended to, and then step inside the inn.
All right.
And Thomas will, of course, dismiss the coachman to go find a stable. Will be a few days. Find a place to make yourself comfortable. I'll come and find you when we're ready to leave.
He nods and kind of tips his hat as he ushers the carriage on. All right. And the group of you make your way into this inn, led by Amelia. And we're going to pause really quick here. I drank too much water. I have to use the bathroom, so I'll be right back.
All right.
Hold it.
I think he's already gone.
I'll be right back too. 1 second.
Are we all here?
Word.
As far as I'm aware.
So,
Scott?
He was literally just here. I must have misplaced him. Damn.
Shit.
I might have left him in my other pants.
What?
Okay. As we were. All right, the group of you enter, led by Amelia, into a still fairly busy evening. It's still early in the evening, so the tavern is still fairly busy. A good number of people are here drinking and having as good a time as they can. Barmaids moving here and there. And Amelia navigates you through the small crowds. This way. She points forward. She leads the group of you to the back of the inn near an entrance, screened with cloth, and two men standing outside, both thuggish brutes in appearance. Jeremy, Edward, I have guests that must meet Prince Gabriel. The two men look from her to you, and then the one on the left that she called Jeremy speaks up. And who might I say we have the pleasure of receiving tonight?
The Covenant's gauntlet.
And He seems to be looking at the group of you, and you in particular, Cormac. The gauntlet, you say? His eyes are narrowed. I will let this grace know, and if he is so kind, you will receive an audience with him.
How very magnanimous of you.
Make sure you use those words precisely. The Covenant's gauntlet.
And he's looking at each of you with beady little eyes, very suspicious, taking his job very seriously as he backs past the cloth screen, looking at you all the whole time into the next room. As the other man, Edward, stands there with a mean scowl, his hand at his side where a mace is belted and ready.
Well, these people are certainly cheery.
Thomas will meet Edward's eyes and then glance down at his own right hand, which rests at the hilt of a very well-made sword. He pats it lightly.
Are you trying to intimidate him or just for show?
Just making sure he knows it's there.
He looks down where you pat and continues to look you in the eye. He's a very tall man. He's at least 6 feet. He's fairly large, a little bit on the obese side, but...
So, same height as Thomas, then.
At least, yeah. Shortly after, the cloth is pushed aside, and this other tall man, Jeremiah, steps back in. This way, please, madams and gents.
Robert gives a polite nod as he steps forward.
Cormac follows.
As does Thomas.
As does Elned.
Alright. As the group of you pass by, of course the sounds of the tavern are still distantly present, but you enter the next room. And once you pass by the cloth screen, you can see immediately on the other side, only about 20 feet away from your entrance, this next room has a desk and a chair. And the chair is faced away toward a low fire setting in. And you see 2 more men in this room on the far corner standing guard, axes at their belts. You can see there's a man facing away from you, sitting right now. He's not making any immediate movements.
Master Gabriel, I presume.
And suddenly the man stands up abruptly. Aha! He steps around the chair to face you. So, you claim to be the Gauntlet of the renowned Covenant.
Indeed, we do.
It is no claim, it is a fact. And Thomas holds up his ring for inspection.
And he looks down, looking very closely. Yes. Well, of course I believed you. I trust the Covenant is doing well, yes? Please give them my best regards.
Of course. Though that will depend on a number of things.
What can I do for you, my friends?
Firstly, it is important that you understand the nature of our business here. We are investigating the fire that took place at the manor outside of Dorchester. What do you know of it?
He kind of shrugs and raises up his hands with a faint smirk. As little as anyone else. There was a fire, and there seemed to be some problem with the last gauntlet there. I heard disconcerting reports.
A fire of that magnitude, involving the entirety of the previous gauntlet, taking place practically on your doorstep, and you know nothing. Curious.
My Lord Gaetan and I had an arrangement. He wished for his privacy, and I accepted a small tribute in exchange for ensuring that. Simple business. I did not wish to interfere, and so I did not. And clearly they found some fine replacements with you all. And he gestures forward.
Can I make an empathy roll to see if he's lying or not?
Sure. Perception, empathy, difficulty 6.
Alright. +1 difficulty for not having empathy?
It's a talent, so no. Standard difficulty for you. You don't think he's lying. He seems to be quite crass about it, but he doesn't seem to have any faint or sense of lying. Indeed, I wish I knew more for you, my lords, but... And again, he feigns this, dejected look, looking down at the ground, his hands coming up, empty-handed.
Well, now Thomas just flat out isn't buying it. He's overselling. It does seem quite unfortunate that you'll be missing out on that tribute, you said.
He raises an eyebrow, looking to you.
Do you also hold influence over the port south of here? I understand it's quite a lucrative wool port.
My business interests are ever expanding. It is a time of opportunity, you know.
I do know, in fact. It'd be quite a shame if that port suddenly found itself without deliveries. Weymouth, I believe it was. Yes.
Make a manipulation, intimidation roll, difficulty 6. And he kind of holds up a hand reassuringly. Now, my lord, let's not get ahead of ourselves. What good would that do for anyone? England's business is everyone's business.
Oh, but there are so many good wool ports to the north. Scotland, I understand, does brisk business in this stuff. And I'm sure Ireland could do with the shillings themselves.
Certainly could.
Not to mention the English nobles that have recently set up shop in Wales that could use it.
So you see, cooperation is in your best interest. Our options are quite broad.
Very well, my lords, you've made yourself quite clear, but what answers would you like? I can try to pull answers out of wherever I may find them.
Well, it's curious. You seem quite adamant that you know nothing, when we have asked nothing.
You asked me what I knew about that night. It's precious little.
All the same, I'm a curious sort. We already know that there was some kerfluffle involving a Dufour fellow. And the young lady mentioned seeing a man departing from the manor, dark of hair and dark of beard.
Did she now? And she glares past you to look at Amelia.
Thomas will step into the gaze and glower at the man.
Well, I don't know who this Dufour man is, but yes, a fellow by the name of John Smith did take up residence in my inn here, the Early Bird. He was in quite a haste. He was bearing some wounds, in fact. But he paid well enough, and he was off the next evening.
He didn't happen to tarry in the area, and you just simply have been paid well enough to hide him.
Make a perception empathy roll. Difficulty 7. You can sense that this visage he's creating of this very confident leader is starting to fragment. You can see the signs of fear on his face, perhaps from what you're saying, but perhaps from something else.
Thomas smirks wryly and lowers his tone. Where is he?
He kind of opens his mouth a couple of times as if to speak. There is a group I had seen outside the city. And he hesitates again. They're a large bunch. Wild. I feared they may have been involved.
A group like us.
He nods. I know my kind when I see them.
There are other kinds that stalk the darkness beyond the city gates. I wanted to be sure.
I sent Amelia out here. After that fire. They're at Maiden Castle, to the southwest. A good group of them. Enough perhaps to raise Gaetan's estate. Perhaps not. But certainly... His voice kind of trails off. I did not wish to bring their ire down upon my town, you see, for the defense, the security of the people which I overlook.
This next part is quite important. Was Dufour working with them or fleeing from them?
That I do not know, but what I can say is the next night he left as soon as my men could see in the southwest, in the direction of Maiden Castle.
And do you know whence the group went?
My most recent report is that they were still present as of a few nights ago.
Do your reports include, perhaps, a number?
He shakes his head. I give them a good space. That many... It is a dangerous thing to gamble with that many of our kind.
Was it more than 5 or less than 20?
You've never been around here, have you? Maiden Castle is atop a hill, a great hill. It is said that that is the old Breton meaning for it. It sees vast expanses of land, but to actually view it is difficult. The perspective is in their favor, not ours. I have no idea how many are up there.
But you know that Dufour went in that direction.
Yes.
Very well. We would partake of your hospitality.
And you shall, of course, be reporting back to the Covenant how very helpful I have been, yes?
We will provide a full report of the facts.
Well then, of course, take as you will. My home is your home.
And when we are refreshed from our travels, we may go see about this maiden fort.
Perhaps you might leave out that you spoke with me if you do find them.
We simply followed the trails.
Yes, the trails. He kind of raises his finger up.
And our tactician identified that upraised point as a viable place for a small cadre of individuals to make a stand if need be. Simple deductive reasoning, after all.
Very good. Well, please do let Jeremiah or Edward know if you need anything else from me. I shall be out.
Do yourself a favor and don't do something as foolish as go and warn them.
I have no wish for death, my lord.
No, but you might send a messenger.
He shakes his head. I do not know what is on that hill, but I do know what you represent, and I wish not to bring down the ire of the Covenant. You may trust in that.
Aye, in that I trust.
If you need me, I shall be south, the port town of Weymouth.
We may join you there presently, though it may be a day or two. We have matters to look into.
Yes, well, I hope you enjoy your stay here in my town.
Thomas will step out of the way so that he can go back out the screen that they just came in.
And he does so, followed by Jeremiah and Edward.
We're alone then, with Amelia?
Yes.
This is concerning to me. This report of wild Canaanites. I'm hoping it's not the kind I've met before.
You've met some of them before?
He nods. They were crazed creatures, not like us. They took what they wanted, without concern for property or life. I was able to rout some of them from Dublin. And then when I landed on England, some of them here as well.
Whereabouts?
That was further to the north, right, Vukar?
That was actually west of here, outside of Exeter. Not very far.
Not far from here at Exeter. It is possible that some of them escaped, or there was more than one group.
Or that they left behind a group to make you feel as though you'd captured them.
In any case, they're not to be trifled with. It is perhaps to our credit that we have a tactician among us. And he'll look over to Elenid.
Yes, that... Unfortunately, we are without siege equipment for proper taking of it. However, that can be remedied.
He spoke of it being a Briton fort. That makes it quite old indeed. I wonder if there's anything left of the actual structure.
These creatures I speak of, if they're the same, they have no care for structure. They're not in it for baubles and fancy things. They're in it for the sheer thrill of murder.
But a structure would be far more defensible than simply an upraised position. Isn't that right, miss?
Yes, that is indeed correct.
If they've made an encampment, which is not unlikely, especially as they'll be a place to hide from the daytime sun, then it can be approached without having as much worry about upraised watch positions. He shrugs a bit, though. But, for now, as I said, we might partake of Gabriel's hospitality. Amelia, I wonder if you wouldn't introduce me to the people in the inn here. Do you know them?
She looks up to you, her holding at her wrist. I've not seen anyone else take residence here besides myself and Gabriel.
No, I meant the patrons.
The patrons?
Yes, the common hall seemed to be abuzz.
Well, I know a few of the Smiths and Fletchers, but I wouldn't say I can claim to know many other people here.
That will do for a start. Can you point them out to me in the inn?
Oh yes, I can.
He'll offer to lead her out into the hall. And Thomas is going to go feed.
Alright, just the three of you now.
Well then, I suppose we should get moving.
Yes, if these others are indeed hostile, we should be prepared.
How do these wild men fight, Cormac?
Like dogs. We were able to rout them with a simple pincher attack. They weren't expecting it. They hadn't planned for it. That and a few tricks that I came up with. Ones you might not approve of.
That's so.
I'll tell you about it sometime, he says, patting you on the shoulder, Robert. But for now, let's eat.
Very well. And Robert offers a smile.
Cormac will go through the curtain into the common room.
Robert is not far behind.
Yep. Ned will leave as well, though she will keep an eye out, survey her surroundings.
Alright. So the group of you all mean to feed. We will start with Thomas, since you were first out. Amelia is helpful and kind of gesturing out and basically pointing, letting you know who the Smiths are and who the the silver minters are and such. So you have an idea of who your targets are. How you mean to feed?
He's going to sit down with the silver minters, as many as he can find in a close enough collection, and begin speaking of potential future trade deals, flattery and whatnot. See if he can't get them to drop their guard for long enough for him to sneak a nip off of each of them.
Alright, I'll have you do a manipulation expression. Difficulty 6. Yeah, you find some opportunities where one steps up to, go, take a leak, and the other one kind of leans in when you ask to whisper some advice. And in the corners, you're able to feed as you need. How much do you need to take?
3.
You can take 3 from a single man. He'll just be out cold. Not out cold, but he'll be out by the time the other man gets back.
We'll take just 2 from a single man. We'll see if we can't get 1 more from the other guy.
I would say with your successes, you're able to do that. Yeah, if you really want to. So your feeding is fairly successful as you talk to these men, and they get a bit lightheaded. They attribute it to the booze as they talk with you and have a few laughs and discuss some ideas.
He'll leave them with the card for his contact information in London. A steward will be through in the next few weeks. We'll see about placing an order.
They seem that they're not tracking too well on it by the end of the conversation, but they take it. Moving on to, we'll go with Cormac. How are you hunting?
The way he does best, by carousing with the lady folk.
Alright, are you using any gifts?
Being that this is the prince's chosen haven and probably declared Elysium, even though there's no Canaanites here, he's not going to.
Okay. I will take a charisma empathy difficulty 6. You managed to get one of these women to pay attention to you, and you have her pulled aside from the rest of the group as you would like. How much do you need to drain from her?
Just 2.
Okay. Yeah, you get her in very good spirits before you give her the kiss and make her very lightheaded as well. Of course, she attributes it to just having met a very charming individual, and just kind of getting a little bit heady with the wine.
He'll bring her to a chair and set her down, saying how woozy she looks. Maybe she's had a little bit too much to drink, but he'll sit down with her.
All right. Elenid, how are you feeding?
Much like before, where are the... Well, it's a bar. Of course there's intoxicated people, but are there any that are more on their own than the others?
Yeah, you see a few people here and there. People look tired. They're drinking on their own, at tables by themselves or at the bar. Their heads kind of low.
She'll go to one of the tables on their own, and are any of them out of the way in a corner or something, out of the basic line of sight?
We'll say one of them is, inevitably.
Okay. Well, she's going to chat up this intoxicated individual more through the means of seduction. Move in more deceptively for what seems to be, going near their ear and feed from them. Go for the neck.
Okay. There's a very long list of rolls you can make for seduction. I'll suffice for an appearance subterfuge, standard difficulty.
Yep. That is the first one.
I'd rather not drag this out too long.
Nope. I can't seduce him.
Not tonight. You find he's actually just a little bit too drunk to pay attention to you. He keeps looking over at his buddies and laughing, and he kind of turns and hits you in the face as you're moving in, and he's like, "Oh, sorry," and he kind of spills some beer a little bit. You think even if you did drink from him, you might be 3 sheets to the wind.
Yeah, I might have the negative effects.
I mean, everyone else is going to. Almost no matter who you drink from, you will have probably those effects. but this man is untenable.
Yes.
'Cause everyone in here is drinking, but yeah, during this time you're not having any luck. I will say this takes, about half an hour. You can try again at a higher difficulty, or you can call it.
I'll call it, if only because he's going to get more intoxicated as time goes on.
Yeah, for the rest of you, I will be having you take the penalty for having imbibed through the vitae. I should probably make a handout for this, because this does happen on occasion. Alright, so I'll have you, everyone who did feed, you'll subtract 1 dexterity and 1 intelligence if you took 2 blood points at least. And you'll be fine after an hour, but for the next hour you'll be like this. As you feel through your donors the effect that they were enjoying. Slight buzz.
While we're just sitting around having a chat, Thomas will inquire of some of the locals about how far a walk they would imagine the Maiden Castle is from the gates.
Just looking that up, I know it's not far. It's really not far at all. It's probably it's about 2 miles southwest.
Thomas nods a bit. And he figures he'll tarry here for a while longer while he lets his fellows get their fill. About how long is left in the evening, out of curiosity?
Well, because you guys took the time to, or rather took the precaution to arrive here and then actually arrive at the estate early in the evening, I'm gonna say it's around 11 at night, and if you wait this hour for the effects to go over, it'll be midnight by the time you're stone cold sober again.
So, plenty of time to deal with a situation, as it were.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the scene is yours. Each of you can see in turn that one or the other is probably feeding, but there doesn't seem to be any great urgency to this moment right now.
Robert will look around the inn. Who seems to have the most attention around them?
At this point, I would say Cormac is keeping a young woman company, and Thomas seems to be... Well, I think he left his 2 silver minter friends.
I'd still be with them.
Okay.
Just not actively trying to feed from them anymore.
So he's still sitting with 2 gentlemen, Elenid is sitting in the proximity of a very drunk man who seems to be spilling law on himself, and he's very boisterous. He's kind of off in the corner, but he seems to be having a good time anyway. And you.
Any groups of revelers that are not taken?
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll look for one that looks the most fun.
Okay. How do you mean to acquire them?
He'll walk up, say a few jokes, get to know them, say he's here on business, try to learn more about the Maiden Castle.
Alright, I'll take a charisma empathy from you as well, standard difficulty. It's almost like the bigger your dice pool, the worse you do. You are not having any luck. You find a few people, mostly women, who are seem to be having a good time, and then you try and chat them up, but the conversation seems stilted and doesn't really go the way you want, and they end up kind of finding excuses to leave your company.
Robert just frowns.
Yeah, it comes to be around midnight, and I'm assuming if most of you are just kind of spending time letting the effects mull over, by this point you feel that you've overcome the side effects of what you've had tonight. What do you all mean to do?
Well, Thomas, once he feels his head clear and the cloud lift, he'll find his feet and make eye contact with his associates. See if they were to depart.
Cormac nods that he's ready, and he'll say his goodbyes to his lady friend.
She smiles and kind of waves at you quietly, still a bit slowed down.
He'll saunter over to Long Tom's side, testing his feet to make sure he's not wobbly.
You feel better now.
A few things we have to discuss.
Oh,
But not here.
of course. Out of curiosity, did Gabriel ever come back?
No. He left. Edward remained. Jeremiah is gone also.
Thomas is going to catch the eye of Elenid and Defear and point towards the back where they met Gabriel earlier, and then gesture for Cormac to follow and head that way himself.
Elened will excuse herself from the table and head along.
As Robert catches the gaze, he looks annoyed, and he is quick to return to that room.
All right. Edward steps aside this time, letting you all pass. And you find your way back into this modest study. The fire is just about out now. It's barely embers.
Thomas is also going to make sure he gestures for Amelia to follow as well, just because he wants to know where the hell she is.
You suspect Amelia was perhaps also fading tonight as you find her being pulled away from one of these young men who seems quite enamored with her. And she follows after you. But the five of you have the room, have the study.
Well then, what is the plan you have for us?
Who's he talking to?
He's looking at Thomas.
I believe I'll probably defer to Elenid on that front. I have some notions in mind, but it's definitely not my specialty. However, I understand there were some things we need to discuss. And he looks at Cormac.
It's all in the same vein, actually. If we're going to do this, and it sounds like we are, we're going to need men. The four of us alone won't be able to take even 5 or 6 of these beasts. And with men comes equipment. I heard you mention Fletchers. Having some bows would not go amiss.
She nods to you.
Having men to wield them wouldn't go amiss either.
I don't know much about that. And she looks down at the ground.
And of course, before Ellen can create a plan for us, we have to scout out the situation. Know what we're up against, so to speak.
Quite so.
Is the inn the only place of congregation around here?
It's certainly the biggest of congregations in town. She nods, looking to you. That and the church.
And who enforces the law here?
The local sheriff.
That may be a start.
Richard Taylor is his name.
Is he the prince's sheriff?
Well, I think he's the sheriff for the whole town.
Yes, but is he Canaanite?
Oh, no. And she almost smiles at that.
Local constabulary, of course. It may suffice.
Except for a problem that you don't realize here. As far as we know, they're not breaking any laws. How will we convince them?
But don't you recall? They burned down a home and killed countless people.
Allegedly.
Allegedly goes a long way with a mob.
Quite, and of course they should be brought in for questioning. And if they happen to resist, so be it.
I was hoping more for fighting men. If we take farmers and smiths with us, they're going to be slaughtered.
Yes, and if the sheriff goes up himself, or whatever band he gets together, he will likely be slaughtered as well.
You see, we have no force of fighting men. We have ourselves, and whomever Mr. Gabriel happens to have in his employ. No offense, he mentions this as an aside to Edward, but I don't know that you're up for this.
Edward's actually standing outside the screen. He might be able to hear you, but you don't see him.
Thomas is going to operate under the assumption that he can be heard.
Doesn't reply either way.
So, Robert, you are by far the speediest of us. How good are you at staying unseen?
I must say, I did not put much focus into being unseen.
Alternatively, Amelia. He mentioned that you were sent there to look at things. Exactly what did you find?
I'm sorry, was she talking to Robert or Amelia?
Amelia.
What was the question?
Alternatively, Amelia. The prince here mentioned that you were sent to the fortress to look at things, survey. Exactly what did you find?
She looks to you almost mechanically, as if pulled to your words. There are wooden walls all around the top hill, and I see lights coming from them, and sometimes howls. It sounds frightening. Sometimes I see riders on the outskirts. I could not get very close.
Patrols too. My, what are they doing up there?
If there are in fact patrols, we could snag one that is on patrol, but they would notice a missing man.
I'm assuming we're working on time limits.
There is the dawn to consider.
Yes.
I wonder. Dorchester itself probably doesn't have any cannons to speak of. It's not close enough to the coast to worry about that level of defense.
Though there was mention of a nearby port.
Weymouth was poorly defended during the war. I don't know that we'd have time to go there and come back with any of their artillery,
Fair enough.
though it is worth considering. I'd rather delay another day and do it right than rush in unprepared if we must.
She nods in agreement. Since we're basically doing battle plans right now, can I make a tactics roll to get the layout of at least something?
It'd be very hard to do with knowing nothing about the terrain or what you're working with. So it's all very open right now. You don't have many details to go off of. With more details, you could.
Well, actually, on that note, Thomas is going to go rifle through the desk and see about pulling out a writing implement and a scrap of paper. Amelia, would you please? I don't know if art is your strong suit, but could you potentially sketch out the layout around the Maiden Castle? Simply so we have a better understanding of the lay of the land.
She looks to you and nods a couple times. And she'll go out. You find a simple paper scroll and a quill that was already sitting on the desk, which she takes and begins working on. After a few minutes of watching her go, she puts together a picture which is simple, but at least it's a start. And you can see the rings within rings and little lines that you have to assume are either gates or perhaps ramparts going up and the entrances up. And you can see a little drawing of the city of Dorchester, and to the southwest of Maiden Castle is what looks like a forest. Little trees are drawn all over. And it gets up pretty close to the actual ramparts. Everything else seems to be pretty clear except for the southwest where there's some tree coverage.
I wonder if we couldn't circle around widely and come at them from behind.
That depends on the route their patrols take.
Of course. But it's a thought.
Amelia, by any chance do you remember the exact route the patrols took?
She shakes her head. I only ever saw 3 riders, but I was too scared to get close enough to find out where they were going or memorize any routes.
Do we think these wild men would just hold up in their fortress if a patrol went missing and they've perhaps sighted a quarry?
That would depend on what they're hunting.
Something about it doesn't seem right to me. The kind of creatures I was speaking about, they wouldn't have patrols. They wouldn't be so well put together. Is it possible that these wild men are a pack of roving gangrels? Or something else? Might we try diplomacy first?
Well, I'm happy to try it, but I'd like to have an alternate option.
Why not try diplomacy and perhaps a fine spot in the forest? We could lead him into an ambush if things go south.
An ambush of whom?
I've heard bows could be an option. Of course, there seems to be reluctance to use the sheriff.
There also seems to be a shortage of strong arms to draw said bows.
Helen, I'll let you make an intelligence academics roll, difficulty 5. There's something fairly straightforward to the process of making war in general that would occur to you quickly as you're discussing this. All right. It occurs to you that you could raise men, certainly. It's not a big town, but there are villages outlying, and this town has a population. There are men you could raise, levies you could raise, certainly, but it would take time, at least a few nights, perhaps longer. It depends on how far you have to go. And to actually raise a force that you think would be sufficient to attack a position as well defensible as this, with certainty of success, you would want a couple weeks at least to prepare for this. This is not something you could prepare for adequately to what you would consider adequate in one night, or even 5.
The question is, how much time do you want to expend? If we go with half a month, we could perhaps have enough of a force to take it. However, by that time, any information we're going after could very well be gone.
And DeFore himself could be dead. We don't
Exactly.
necessarily know the relationship between him and whoever's up there.
Though I am not certain how sociable they are. The prince of this area did seem like... well, he had some amount of fear for them. Said talking to them would be a bit of a death wish on his part.
But how can he know it if he hasn't tried? One thing's for certain, we don't have 2 months. We need to find out what they want, and quickly.
Quite so. Well, it seems there's not much else for it then. I'll go have a chat with them.
Not by yourself, you won't. I'm going with you.
And he glances at the other two, expectantly.
And no backup plan. Is that it?
No time for one. So how brash do you feel? Sorry.
There's always time for a backup plan. I would say...
Besides, my apologies.
I would say... Let's lay that ambush. See if you can circle around to the position within the trees. If we get in trouble, we'll come your way. If you hear the clash of steel, you come to us.
Besides, I've been rather good at thinking on my feet.
Do you know your way around a sword, Eleanor?
Jay smiles a bit and says, yes, I have taken up training in martial combat. However, I would not say I am as good as the standard soldier.
No matter, you're a woman of many talents.
If you don't mind, I would prefer to stay here.
Yes. There's no reason that you should be dragged into this any further than you already have been.
I wish you all the best of luck, and of course you can look over the things that I found. Perhaps you'll find something of your friends. And she looks to you, Elenid.
Yes, that would be most beneficial. Where perhaps are you keeping these things?
Oh, I keep a room downstairs. I will show you. And she offers a weak smile as she passes by the screen.
She gives a polite smile in return and goes to follow.
Alright, does anyone else follow, or do you all remain?
If no one else is going to go, Thomas will follow after, just to make sure. And he's paranoid. For like
Cormac will stay behind. Sorry. He's willing to wait.
Roberts, for now, just looks at... He's going to stay behind.
Alright, so the two of you stay behind. We'll follow Elenid and Thomas as the two of them follow this woman down. And she leads you downstairs into... At first you see a wine cellar, and then you see another room that connects. And it looks like there is a small room set up for actual, living chamber. And in it, it's a small area, but there is a nice little pile of stuff that seems to be collected. You see a golden vase. It has a few scorch marks on it. A few silver necklaces and chains. There's a small sapphire in it. And you also see a very large and ornate steel great axe that has scorch marks and many chips in it, the signs of wear of many battles. And there is also an iron chest with several burn scorches across it that's set beside this pile.
If I remember sorry.
That's all she says. This is everything.
If I remember correctly, didn't the Malcav use a great axe?
Yes, he did.
Is this his?
Sure looks like it. Very similar, although bearing more scorch marks and knocks on the blade than you recall.
She goes over to the great axe, runs her hand along the handle of it. This was Wulfric's.
It's a massive weapon, almost as tall as some of the claymores that you've seen used in battle over your many years of warfare. It's rare to see among either the English or the French. The weapon of a Dane, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas is going to go heft it.
It's very heavy. Let me see your sheet really quick. You actually cannot pick it up when you go to if you're picking it up as is, you cannot pick it up.
That's impressive.
Oh, actually, you have potence. Never mind.
Okay.
You can pick it up. I always forget that. You can pick it up. You find it a little bit easier to hold in two hands, although you could, if you wanted to, hold it in one hand. It's a mighty weapon, to be certain, although dulled, certainly.
I think I might hang on to this. Seems a shame for such a fine, mighty weapon to basement.
And should that weapon strike down the person who ultimately, well, created the plan to fell him, it would be a good act of vengeance for him.
A fine notion of justice. Agreed.
All right.
But that chest, though.
Yes, she will go and inspect the chest. Is it burned to the point where it will unlock on its own?
It actually does not have a lock.
Okay. Alright, she will slowly open it, careful not to create any more damage than is already there.
Now, you get a lot of soot on your hands when you push the lid open, and some falls off, just like bits and dust of soot. And as you open it, you see inside there is a set of cloth. It's a brilliant aquamarine. There are very nice symbols and markings on it, and a note to the side. And Thomas, since you're appraising this and you have a particular skill set, I'll have you make a perception mercantile standard difficulty. Oh yeah, you immediately recognize what this is. This is fine velvet, plush and dyed. It bears the heraldry that you both would recognize. This is the long-nosed bird over a chevron and a split shield. This is the sign of Gaetan de Corriveau. You would appraise this Devereux velvet at about 10 pounds.
Now, while I would like to read this note, I also got a bit of soot on my hands. It would be quite a shame for me to get this on the fabric.
Thomas will reach in and pluck out the note.
And just for comparison, that amount of money is roughly comparable to what you could buy with 10,000 American today.
Yeah, I got that.
I'm not sure anybody else did, but Right, and as you look over the note, you see it is written in French, which I believe you both know, and you're both literate. And you see that it says, "Delivered to Jean-Marc post-haste." And the insignia below it is a long-nosed bird over a chevron and a split shield.
Now, why would Gaston be sending his heraldry, such a fine coat of arms, to Jean-Marc in Lincoln?
Well, at the very least, it gives us something to ask about.
I found that chest by the stables. It was abandoned by the carriages. It seemed ready to go. Remarkably, the fire didn't seem to reach inside.
Thomas will see if there's shift around the cloth and see if there's anything else left inside as well.
Though if it is of use, I know Gatan's childer is in Bristol.
There is nothing else in the chest. You would also recognize, as you're moving it about, the approximate yardage. This is certainly expensive, but it's also something that is sometimes done when you wish to give an example or a sample of your product for the textile market. This is sometimes used. You use the merchant's insignia to see who you're buying from, and the quality speaks for itself. Often used in, negotiations. Specifically, Thomas would know that.
Right, no, I got that. Maybe unrelated, but didn't Gaston and Jean-Marc have a business arrangement?
Does Thomas know about that?
DeVere mentioned it.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay. Amelia just looks confused.
It could be connected. No, to their business arrangement, I mean.
Thomas is also going to look over the other baubles that happen to be laying here as well, seeing if there's anything else of particular note.
No, of course it has some monetary value. There's nice silver and a few pieces of gold and of course a sapphire, so there's certainly value here, but nothing else that really gives you any indication of what might have happened or any other insight through any mundane investigation.
In that case, Thomas is going to gently fold the cloth back up in the iron chest and see about hefting that as well.
You definitely need 2 hands to carry the iron chest.
I can handle the chest. I already got my hands sooty from opening it before.
If you wouldn't mind, then.
Alright, she will go and pick up the chest.
Oh, you are both very strong. It was quite a great difficulty for me to bring those things here.
The rest is of no importance to us. Do with it as you will.
She nods. All right, what are the two of you going to do?
Thomas is going to go bring this back up to the study.
Yep, as soon as they get back to the study, she's gonna have she has an idea.
All right, so you're bringing the axe and the chest of cloth?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And meanwhile, what are Robert and Cormac doing we're talking about?
Unless Robert wants to engage in small talk, Cormac's actually sat down behind the desk and he's just thinking.
Tell me, Cormac. I'm thinking of ways we could tip this in our favor.
All right.
I think bows will suffice if the sheriff does indeed have men or know of men. But I think we could adjust the arrows to make them more deadly to our kind.
And how do you intend to do that?
Perhaps soak them in pitch or oil of some sort, and have the men ignite them and let loose. It makes sense for a nighttime ambush.
Oh, you cruel bastard. I love it.
I'm glad you approve. I think such a thing would greatly tip the scales in our favor.
I should think so. If it comes to that, diplomacy might go well. This might not be what I think it is after all. In fact, I pray it's not.
Still, I may go and speak with the sheriff myself. See how the investigation on the manor is. Perhaps drop a tidbit that the suspected assaulters of the manor are taking refuge at that fort.
He nods his approval at that. What could be taking them so long?
It's about that time that the two of them move in past the screen, and you see that Thomas is wielding a mighty great axe, charred and dulled a bit, but you think at least 4 feet long, and Ellenid is holding a large, dusty, blackened, and sooty chest.
Impressive chest, Cormac says.
Well, what did you find?
An axe belonging to Wulfric, one of the former members of the Gauntlet. And a chest with a rather exquisite tapestry inside.
Robert looks curiously at the chest. Is that all?
The rest was of no consequence.
What conclusions have you drawn with these items?
The tapestry itself bore the heraldry of Gaston de Corveau, and a note addressing it to your grandsire, in fact.
Indeed. May I see this note?
Thomas will produce it.
And Robert will look at it.
You also speak French, I believe. So you also read, deliver to Jean-Marc post haste, and the insignia you recognize.
That is indeed the insignia he bears.
This isn't the sort of shock of cloth simply sent about to show off between nobles. This was a mark of craftsmanship, potentially a contract being negotiated or something else related to that.
I did mention that there was a business deal in the works, one which I was not let in on. Though my grandsire did seem to have previous knowledge of the Mercers, and considering their hold on textiles, I would assume this is somehow tied.
I wonder if perhaps the assault on the manor isn't also related to the Mercers Guild.
Do you think it would be possible?
Greed is a strong motivator. Enough of it can make the world turn.
I do wonder, behind the Mercers, they are under some great influence.
Enough influence to send a slavering mob of inhuman fiends to burn down a building, do you think?
Allegedly.
Thomas chuckles. Yes, of course. Allegedly.
I have heard of series of mishaps. Perhaps nothing quite so bloodthirsty, but money can drive men to do anything.
Very nearly.
Unrelated, though. That axe, I've had at least a spark of an idea. It's a bit out of the way, though.
Have at it, then.
His axe was very important to him, or at least it seemed that way. As such, do any of you think it would be possible to, well, see if a Cappadocian can do their work and talk to the spirit involved? Assuming he is still around.
If I knew of one, it would be a thought.
She smiles and says, "Oh, that's the thing. I do know of one. However, we're going to have to tread lightly. He is very close allies with a Bruja in the area, one very powerful Bruja with a good deal of contacts in London."
Really?
Yes.
Anyone I might know?
The Cappadocian in question is named Izakaya, and the Bruja is Tybalt. Now, I don't know the specifics of the abilities of the corpse-like clan, but they do at least claim to have power over death. It could be beneficial if there is a way to speak to him.
I don't disagree with you. But when you say in the area...
I
How-
mean, it is out of the areas. It is something that is more of a thought of after what we are going to do, because this Cappadocian is all the way in Bristol, last I heard.
Yes, a decent travel.
A good deal too far to go for now.
Exactly. It is something that would be beneficial later on down the road.
Though I'm sure I can reach out and make contact with Tybalt when we stop off in London, en route to Lincoln.
Yes. More so since Izakaya is a rather reclusive sort.
Aren't all of them? I've never met a Cappadocian myself. Not once that I can remember.
He's the only one that I have seen. Though it has been quite a while. Last time I saw him was in my early years while hanging around Elysium. But we have other matters to tend to.
For now, I fully intend to put this axe to a very different use. Assuming diplomacy goes wrong.
She nods and says, I am certain Wulfric would have it no other way.
Are you bloody taking the piss, mate? Nothing looks as heavy as you are.
Thomas hefts it with relative ease.
Full of surprises, ain't ya?
Oh, Ned gets a smile for a moment, puts the chest down, reaches her hand out. May I try?
Thomas turns the haft over in her direction. By all means.
Alright, she will try to lift it. She does, by the way, have potence.
I see
One
that
dot, but still potence.
you are only able to hold it if you use both your hands. If you switch to one hand, you find it almost impossible to keep up.
She'll use both her hands. It really isn't that difficult to keep a hold of. And with that, she passes it back.
Thomas chuckles. Now, if only I didn't have to carry it by hand, that would be quite a thing. Sure, any harness or belt that might have been attached to it is long since consumed by fire.
Yes. But there are a great deal of, well, leather workers and the such. I'm certain someone can make something that would fit along with the current
I don't know that we have the time for that
scheme of
tonight.
it. Yes, of course, not now.
Perhaps in honor of the man. Indeed.
So when are we going to have our little parley?
I'm quite ready to go now, as a matter of fact.
Might want to wait a night or two.
I much would rather have it.
De Beer here had a plan. A backup plan, yes. Why don't you tell them?
Yes. It came upon me that perhaps we could, if we get the men, adjust the weapons to be more deadly to our kind. I speak, of course, soaking the arrows in a pitch or oil, something flammable.
She nods. A fine idea should things go to the worst possible scenario. Well, one of the worst possible scenarios.
A dozen or so men armed with longbows, nestled in those trees, would certainly make a right mess of things inside that fort.
However, raising such a force would be time-consuming.
We're not speaking of an army,
Of course not.
and the longbow is not exactly a complicated weapon. I'm sure many of the hunters in the area use them on the regular.
That is what I am leaning towards. At the very least, I do want to get the local kind sheriff in on this.
Why don't you go and have a chat with him? See if he can arrange for a few deputies after dusk tomorrow to await a signal.
And that is what I intend to do. And if nothing else is said, Robert will indeed head out. Of course, making sure he knows where to go.
All right.
We're going,
Go ahead.
we're going to rouse the sheriff out of bed in the middle of the night.
Hopefully he will not be too irate.
Hopefully. We need his good graces after all.
Did any of you take common sense?
No, but now you maybe wish I had.
No.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it is closer to 1 in the morning now.
Though if the sheriff has any type of night watch, they would be the easiest to contact at the moment.
Just what I had in mind. Perhaps I should bring some parchment and writing utensils.
Have them pass along a word.
Though we should likely ask our local new ally exactly whom the sheriff is and whom his night watch comprises of.
Oh, Amelia has been so kind as to mention his name. Perhaps not the Night Watch.
She mentioned that sheriff was Richard Taylor. There's something fairly salient that anyone with politics would deduce as you're also thinking about this, given the county you're in. Anyone who has politics can make an intelligence politics difficulty 6. Robert. Alright. Elenid, Robert, and Tom all come to the realization the city of Dorchester is in the county of Dorset. The county of Dorset is run and owned effectively by the recently created title, the Earl of Dorset, the first Earl of Dorset. And his name is Edmund Beaufort. Edmund Beaufort is a very important political player right now on the field of royal politics, and he is known to nominally oppose the current keeper of the realm, the Yorkist Richard III. What this all means, basically, is that the first Earl of Dorset, Edmund Beaufort, is a very powerful political figure, and you are all talking about raising his men in his county. I just want to make sure that's known.
Before I go, who wishes to cure the special arrows we would need for this?
Thomas, you have a way with merchants. Perhaps you and I can procure them.
Indeed, perhaps. And I wonder if we might also not pay a visit to the local nobility. I'm sure they wouldn't like to know. They would love to be informed of the brigands taking refuge.
No doubt.
I wonder if the Fletchers happen to still be in the bar. And he'll draw back the screen and gesture for Cormac to lead the way.
And he does.
How long would you estimate traveling to the Earl of Dorchester would take?
The Earl of Dorset, Edmund Beaufort?
Yes.
He doesn't really idle around his county. He actually spends most of his time in London with this group of other nobles who hold great sway over the king, King Henry VI. So he spends most of his time with them. He's among these infamously corrupt men with great power and sway. And I'm sorry, he wasn't opposed by Richard III. He's opposed by Richard of York, who is the third Duke of York, but technically not Richard III. But yeah, Edmund Beaufort is likely in London. Of course, he may be traveling elsewhere, but he spends more time there probably than here. And you would know enough about politics to realize that a lot of these nobles, just because they own land, doesn't mean they actually go to those lands. They just collect money from them.
Very well. Maybe something to bring up in the future. In the meantime, Robert will make sure he gets what he... Well, he'll write the note ahead of time if he needs it. And it'll basically state that he's come here to look into the manor burning down, and that he came across information of brigands operating outside of the castle or fort, and he has his own group of peacekeepers, as it is, with him, but he would like to seek assistance from the sheriff in seeing these men to justice.
All right. I'm gonna have you write that all down and send it to me in a PM, just so I have it all in one place. And you can go ahead and set about writing that. That's fine. What do the rest of you mean to do? What do you all mean to do this moment in the immediate present? Besides write this note.
Cormac and Thomas are going to see if the Fletchers are still in the common room.
And
Elened will accompany Robert as to make sure he doesn't wander off on his own. Strength in numbers.
all right. So you leave Robert to write this note, and the rest of you go out to look for carpenters, or rather Fletchers, I'm sorry. You find that they are gone by this point, perhaps having too much to drink, they felt it too much, perhaps some other reason. They're gone now.
Damn the look.
I still very much would like to go have a chat with the folks at the fort for the moment. See if they wouldn't turn over Mr. DeFore peaceably.
Without having our backup plan in place, that's foolhardy.
It's only foolhardy if we raise a fuss on the matter.
I like it. Let's do it.
Since Robert and Ellen are still writing their note, Thomas will take a moment to poke his head back in. We're going to go see a man about a fort. We'll let you know.
Already?
We'll let you know how it goes.
If you... All right, I wish you the best of luck, and...
We're just going to talk.
I
They may not
certainly
see
hope
that.
it goes well.
This was all his idea. I'm just going to make sure he stays out of trouble.
Very well, then.
And Tom will lead the way and have themselves a merry little walk.
This is a stupid idea, you know that, right?
It could very well be. But I've never met a customer I didn't like.
These are not customers, they're bloody barbarians.
They don't know that they aren't customers. Besides, this DeFore fellow looks a right foppish fellow.
All right, Ponce, you're right.
It might be that he happened to stiff me, and is currently in debt to quite a tidy sum. My fight's not with them, after all. He's the one we're looking for. And if we happen to make him more trouble than he's worth, they may simply turn him over to us without a second thought.
And we're just going to saunter over there without horses, on foot.
Yes, a wealthy merchant doesn't go anywhere on foot. Excellent point. Thomas will steer them towards the stable, hoping that there's a stable boy awake.
You find one who's nodding on and off. He's kind of leaned up against the wall, and you can see it's probably the apprentice or something. He's very young, but he seems to stand at attention when he sees the two of you approach. Oh, yes, my lords.
2 horses, lad. Quickly now. We've not much time to tarry.
You already have horses stabled here, sir?
Of course.
Which ones would those be?
Thomas will point at the ones that look the best, the most well-fed.
Alright, roll a manipulation subterfuge, difficulty 6.
Ormic is just grinning ear to ear. You can't believe this is happening.
The boy looks nervously between you and these two fine horses. They're what you think are. They must be stallions. They're too fine a horse to. You're actually surprised to find them in this town, this fairly small town. And he's looking between you and the horses a little bit nervously. I'm pretty sure that was some of the horses of the guests of Lord Beaufort, but I'm sure I was mistaken. I'm sure I was mistaken. So let me get them out for you.
Ormic gives Thomas a very knowing look.
Certainly. If I happen to be mistaken, then we'll have them back to you before the dawn anyway. We'll sort it out in the morning.
Yes,
He
sir.
plops a couple of coins in the boy's hand.
Thank you. And he nods. And he leads the horses out with the reins.
Cormac tries to contain his excitement. This horse, after all, is not only arsed.
No, the horse you are presented with is a tall and mighty steed, a very dark brown, and it has a few nice blankets and cloths set across it. The saddle is of fine leather.
Cormac will swing into the saddle expertly, patting the horse's flanks and withers, admiring this beautiful creature.
Thomas is obviously not an extremely accomplished horseman, but he does well enough.
Yeah, it takes you a few moments to get up. It's a very tall horse that you also have that's dark, kind of a dark off yellow with spots of brown here and there. Also very tall and very sturdy. They must have been a pair of some kind, because this one is also very nicely dressed with blankets across it as well.
Do you need some help there, Lord Chamberlain?
Thomas frowns a bit. No, I'll be fine. And he...
You have seen a horse before, haven't you?
I believe I'm looking at the hind end of one now.
Well played, sir. And he'll give the horse a little kick and trot off a little ahead.
Thomas follows suit and matches pace, riding abreast.
Alright, and the two of you ride off. We'll close that scene. And what do Elenid and Robert mean to do? Robert, you're spending a lot of time putting together this letter. What does Elenid do as Robert is writing?
What she is mainly doing is keeping an eye out more, making sure no one comes in while he's writing his letter and attempts to slaughter him or anything, since, well, the quote-unquote prince of this area acted quite a bit suspect.
Sure. Robert's head is down, but yours is up. Make a perception alertness roll, difficulty 9.
Does detail-oriented apply for this?
Absolutely.
What was the difficulty again?
9. No, nothing really seems amiss. You still hear the sounds of some of the people out beyond the screen, and there's still some business. Of course, it's slowing down considerably since when you got here a couple hours ago. And so we will pause here as the scene fades on Elenid looking about and Elenid writing furiously, or Robert writing furiously as Elenid looks about. And we will take a break, take our 10-minute break here, and we will come back after that.
Cool. Ooh, hot dog. Love them.
Are we all back?
I'm scared.
I'm here.
Don't hug me, I'm scared. Yes.
Beware the Jabberwock, they said.
Well, we broke the rule of all tabletop games and split the party.
It's a shit rule.
I know it is a shit rule.
It's just a truism, not an actual fact.
It's more paranoia than anything else.
It's all paranoia.
Nonsense. I've seen things that will turn your hair white.
Don't split the party for Dungeons and Dragons, not vampire.
Yeah, vampire, pretty much. It's part of the course.
Okay. Let's get back into it. Just get my stuff here. Alright. We focus in on Cormac de Courcy and Thomas Chamberlain as the two of them are riding out of town close to the witching hour, riding southwest. In the direction they hear is a place called Maiden Castle. And true description, it's not a very far ride at all. Maybe half an hour before you see what you have to imagine is, by description, the area you've been described. And you can see, even at a distance, the ramparts, many hills that make this such a defensible location. The hills level up and up. They could probably see for miles around in every direction. And you do see the glow of light. It's faint, but you see it, even at a distance. You're about a quarter mile out now.
Would you look at that place?
Just remember, the goal is to not start a fight.
Believe me, I completely agree with that. Well, nothing for it then. Let's go say hello.
Thomas will kick his horse into a little bit of a jog.
Alright. You begin to trot forward, closing in, and as you get closer, you can see where the rampart breaks and the path leading up to summit this hill are. And as you get closer, you can see there is a wooden palisade, kind of a spiked wooden fence that ends the perimeter at the very top, with a couple makeshift scaffold towers that just peer over it. And there are men on there.
Thomas will call out to announce himself. Hello, the fort!
You can see at this distance, the man is definitely caught sight of you. And he looks back and calls down something. What is Cormac doing as Thomas hails them?
Standing behind him and to his left, looking up, seeing what they'll do.
It's about a minute before you see some activity near the last break in the rampart where the palisade wall ends and there's an opening where more light is coming from. and it's obstructed as 4 riders come out and begin descending the ramparts to greet you.
Here we go.
Thomas puts on his best affable smile as they come forward.
You see, as these riders draw close, the riders themselves are clad darkly. You can see long swords at their side. They're cloaked rather heavily, hiding their faces mostly. 2 of them go behind you to flank you as the front 2 stop, and the front speaks up. Are you friend or foe?
I would be friend. Though I do have a matter which has vexed me terribly. I hope that you might aid me in resolving it.
If you're a friend, you would come inside and speak to my leader. And he reins up on the horse to turn it around.
I would be happy to, though a question first. My visit is...
Your questions will be noted at the top. He interrupts you and begins leading you on. And you can feel that the other 2 men behind you are encouraging you forward now.
Got some traps, aren't they?
Quite sociable, in fact, yes.
I told you this was a stupid idea.
You followed.
He shrugs and smiles at you as they follow the men inside.
Alright, you're escorted quite closely along the edges of these ramparts, going up and around until you reach the break. And you find the entrance to this wooden palisade. And you enter in. As you crest and you enter into this more lit space, you see dozens of tents arranged in a semicircle, crudely, around a bonfire near the center. There also seems to be a number of weapon racks set aside along what you could roughly consider the main path leading to the bonfire, but all the weapon racks are empty. And on the far side of the bonfire and tents, you can hear the neighing of horses, likely stabled up and rained down. And in front of the bonfire, perhaps 10 feet from it, there is a petite figure, a woman in a dark gown and jet black hair flowing down. And except for these 4 men who escorted you in, and the man who stands watch at the tower you recognize, you don't see anyone else right now.
It doesn't matter. Cormac's eyes are planted firmly on this woman.
Thomas is looking about appraisingly, almost as if he's taking stock and planning his pitch. Hail! Would you be the lady of this castle?
You aren't led right up to her. You see her at a distance, but you're stopped as the escort turns and motions for you to dismount.
Thomas swings a leg over.
Cormac follows suit.
Do mind those horses, they're alone.
He says nothing as he rides over to take the reins from you. And does Thomas still have that great axe?
No, he would have left that behind. That would have
Okay.
been easy to give away.
So this man who's been speaking to you leads these two horses away. And the other three riders that escorted you have formed up at the entrance, at the only escape that you can easily tell from this place. And it seems now you're free to roam about or walk about.
Well, he's going to approach the finely dressed lady. Unless, of course, he stops.
You walk up to her, approaching her as she's watching this bonfire, and she turns to you as you draw close, and you get a better look at this person. Good evening.
Good evening, milady. I am a humble steward of a merchant house. I saw the lights and thought I might offer my services. Of course, there is another matter as well I wonder if you might help me with.
And what is that, Thomas Chamberlain?
There is a fellow I'm told has taken refuge here. He owes my house quite a sum.
Does he know?
Indeed. By my count, it is considerable debt he has accrued.
This young woman's eyes go from yours to Cormac's. What is Cormac doing?
He's still standing behind Thomas and off to the left. But he folds his arm over his chest now. Not feeling very comfortable at all with this woman's gaze.
Her eyes eventually go back to Thomas.
Out of curiosity, Thomas would have been embraced while Ellen Alice was still in residence in London. Does he remember her at all?
You actually would have been embraced at a point when you would not have known her. By the time you were
Okay.
embraced, you never heard anyone. A debt, is it? Are you sure that is what you wish to say?
That's what the books show. And he'll give a description of Robert Dufour. I have no quarrel with anyone else here.
Debt or not, you hunt someone, but I fear you hunt the wrong someone.
I will defer to your greater wisdom. Tell me, how do you know my name?
I have eyes and ears in more places than you would think. I know who both of you are. I know who all four you are. The gauntlet is dead. All of England knows that by now. And the elders, in their reliable predictability, have laid the blame at the feet of the younger and the innocent. And like so many before you, you have answered their call.
Yes, but to my credit, I don't approve of it.
If it helps, I merely wish to speak with the man. Nothing more.
What would you do, Cormac de Courcy? If you do not like it, what would you do to change it?
I've already had my ideas on that. Unfortunately, they fell on deaf ears then, and likely will now. All the same, I'd like to know what happened to the gauntlet.
Mostly I'd like assurances that I'm not working for the killers of the gauntlet. Wouldn't that be an interesting twist? The Covenant killing its own right hand.
Even if not by their direct order, they are casualties in the war the elders have always fought for their own power, for their own elevation. They are collateral damage in the eyes of the elders. There's a war being waged right now, a war for freedom. Freedom from the tendrils they and our sires and grandsires would hold. And it is not just us, and it is not just here. There are clans on the continent that have cast down their progenitors. This war wages across Europe, and it is overdue that England should be freed as well.
I don't disagree with that sentiment, but I rely on facts and evidence to make my decisions. And all I seek is facts and evidence. We understand that Mr. DeFore was seen causing a ruckus outside the manor. If this is a misrepresentation of those facts, so be it. However, if he did indeed have a direct hand in their destruction, I would choose to know that as well. If he did not, then he is free to go.
Was Cormac saying?
I honestly do not remember. So we'll just say he stays quiet for now. Here's what she'll say.
You hear a voice from behind you as the sound of steps grows louder. A ruckus, is that what they said that I made? You see a man step out from the shadows of one of these tents. You see that he is well dressed, a fine dark hat and clothes, late 20s with dark facial hair. He fits the description, the painting.
Yes. Something like that. With your leave, madam, I would parley with this man.
You do not need to do their bidding. Not anymore. You, the four of you, have more potential than any before to help restore the balance and liberty to the entirety of England. The gauntlet, the most prized and trusted tools of the most guilty elders in this land turned against them. You would be hailed for centuries as the saviors of our kind, of the innocent and the young and abused. You could be the turning point in our revolt against their tyranny.
I will think on what you have said. But for now, I would like to be certain that I don't have a knife at my back.
And as she is speaking and you respond, you can see all around you on all sides there are figures in the darkness beginning to appear. The silhouettes at the edge of the camp, looking in, standing and watching. You sometimes catch the glint of light reflecting off their eyes. You think there are 20 in number at least. You are not our enemy. There need be no conflict here. You are correct. You are dogs still attached to their master's leash, eager for scraps and glad to have them, as was I to Eleanor Grey, before I was disgraced. But we would see you freed, if you would but join us on this most just of revolts.
Your words are enticing, but we as yet do not know what you represent.
We would be brash younglings indeed to take up with an organization we have only just found. How could you possibly respect us then?
This woman turns, looking to you, Cormac. I have heard of the fire and passion with which you spoke in London. Deaf ears they may have fallen on, but that is not something I would ignore. It is certainly something I can respect. You have held this ideal in yourself before you met me this night.
It's true, my lady. The fire still burns, and he'll bow at the waist to her, acknowledging that she knows much.
You may leave here unmolested this one time. Do not interfere with our efforts, and no harm will come to you in the future. For as much as it would pain me to see a kindred soul be destroyed for the wishes of the elders yet again, this revolt must succeed, no matter the cost. I implore you to think on our words tonight.
One last question, if I may, and then we will depart.
She nods.
Did you and your fellows burn the manor?
You hear the voice from this man before, Robert Dufour, behind you. No. I was tricked, and almost paid for it with my own life.
I believe you. I thank you for your courtesy and your mercy, my lady. You will hear no more from us.
wish to sate the appetite of your elders with their leashes around you, I may have something you may need.
Oh. What, pray tell?
Amidst the debacle that was that night while I was escaping, I saw another Canaanite escaping that manor house, caught ablaze. He burnt down to ashes just feet in front of me. Not one of the gauntlet, mind you, but someone else. The arsonist, or an assailant, perhaps. I suspected I might be blamed for this later, so I grabbed his fangs and his dagger, searching through his ashes before I fled the estate. But I would not only proof of my innocence handed readily into the servants of the elders while they seek my blood.
For whatever it's worth, my service is to England first.
As you say. And he kind of grins at that.
And the truth follows at a close second.
What is Cormac doing during this time?
Cormac is very conflicted now. They've said some words that really touch him deep inside. He can feel an old rage stirring there. And he can't help but ask the woman, "Who are you then, that stands so brazenly against those who've held these domains for centuries?"
You may call me Ellen Alice, child of Juliet Moreau.
I don't know the name, but I thank you.
She bows her head and gestures to the men behind you to step aside. I am afraid we will be keeping your horses. You must understand, for our own safety, we can't have you getting back too quickly. For now, we certainly cannot trust this encampment anymore.
To be fair, this encampment has been known for some time. It was revealed to us by the self-proclaimed prince. Plus, those horses don't belong to us.
Yes, Gabriel, he has played his part. But now that we have the attention of the Covenant, we cannot afford to remain, I'm afraid.
Well then, Thomas, should we depart, empty-handed and horseless?
If you wouldn't mind, have someone return the horses to the stable in town. I wouldn't want the stable boy to catch a switch on our behalf.
You seem to get no reactions from that.
I don't think they care.
Likely not. But it was worth asking anyway. And he'll head out the gate unless someone's going to stop him.
No one stops you, but as you're walking out the gate, another man appears out of the shadows and coming into the light of the bonfire and the torches. And he's tall as you. He's girthy and has a hand axe at his side, and you recognize him as the ghoul Edward, who was standing guard. And he walks casually past you into the camp.
Cormac can't help but look. What grin he has left fading away quickly.
The fucking inn. And he can't cast a glower back at them, then breaks into a run.
And you are left to run. As you run down the ramparts away from this group, whoever they are.
And Cormac does indeed follow at a run.
Thomas is going to try vaulting the ramparts. I know it sounds dumb, but yeah. He's going to try and jump down the ramparts rather than down the path leading up.
You can try. I'll take a Dex Athletics, difficulty 8.
Going to be pumping blood to Dex, by the way.
Okay. You get a good running jump, but you end up rolling down the ramparts a bit. You don't really hurt yourself, but it's not very efficient. It actually, you get stuck in some of the rougher terrain, and it actually slows you down a bit.
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Cormac watches this with a bemused interest. He's still rather off-put by what happened inside the castle, but watching a Ventru tumble down like a child on a hill does give him a bit of pleasure. But he himself is taking the road.
Alright. It'll take you about an hour on foot to get back. Going at a good clip, though.
Yeah, Thomas is going at a full run for as long as he can.
Yeah. And of course, as a vampire, you do not fatigue at all, so that shouldn't be a problem. We will break away from this scene. As we open up back towards where Robert is riding furiously, and Elenid is keeping him company. Does Elenid simply mean to wait there until he's done?
She simply means to wait there until he's done. She, as mentioned before, she's more there to make sure no one ends up trying to catch him off guard.
It takes him about half an hour to put it together. You see him sometimes put a line through one word and then start writing again, and doesn't do that too many times, but he takes his time writing this, and at the end seems content with what he's made.
There. I think this will do nicely.
Very good. Oh. Do you have any, well, of course the plan has a potential of going horribly awry, but what are your thoughts on their survival rate?
Against the unknown, how can one even guess?
A fair point.
Hopefully, things will go well. Depending, of course, how prepared we are and how mindless they will be in their attack.
Yes.
But I appreciate that you've remained and kept me company here.
She gives a polite smile and says, well, we are in mostly unknown territory. It would be foolish to just leave you on your own.
Quite right. I suppose since we've threatened the prince and everything, that he may be of the bitter sort.
That is quite the possibility.
Well, let us not remain here much longer. After all, I have a letter to deliver.
Yes. Let us be on our way then.
Alright, so the two of you step out.
Yep.
Yes.
Alright. As you step out, make all of perception alertness from both your difficulty 5. As you both walk out into the tavern, you see for the first time tonight that it looks like the door guard Edward is gone. There are still other people in the tavern, of course, it's just you haven't seen him move.
Curious.
I suppose. Saying nothing more, Robert would towards the exit.
Elined will pause for a moment and continue shortly after.
Alright. Two of you make your way onto the streets. Where do you intend to go at this late hour? Closing in on 2 in the morning now.
Mainly the constables, keeping with the plan.
You want to go wake up the sheriff?
At least deliver the letter to one of his night watchmen.
Well, here and there you see guards walking up and down. You think perhaps one of them will maybe raise it up, escalate it, if they're dutiful to their job.
Of course, Robert will hail the nearest guard, or at least one that looks like he can move around, and not in a position that he would be holding the whole night.
Now you see one patrolling. He's walking down the road with a spear in his hand.
Now there, guardsman.
What you want?
If you would be so kind as to deliver this letter to the sheriff.
What now?
As I said, I suspect I've located the arsonists who burned down the manor.
Oh, well, how about that? Good for you. What's in it for me?
And of course, there would be a reward if you saw this through.
Oh, yeah? What kind of reward? For me risking my neck waking up the sheriff right now.
Your sheriff is a hard man.
What, Taylor? He's the old bastard. Mean old prick. If I'm gonna wake him up, I want some coin.
I can give you coin, and Robert will produce a coin purse. Something suitable for this. You fetch out a coin. I think you do not have to wake him in the night, though. This can easily wait for the morning. I suspect he'll have to take his time getting things ready. But hopefully, at next dusk, he will be ready.
Roll your resources difficulty 5 to come up with a nice coin purse in the moment. You're flush enough for this. You know how to bribe a guard, and you have the coin to do it. He kind of raises the coin up and down, letting it jingle a bit in his hand. Hey, whatever you say.
Be prepared. I'm sure these men are of a very dangerous sort, and I suspect you will be called in on this, apprehending them.
He nods, and then continues on with his patrol, stuffing the coin purse into his jacket on the inside. looking around.
Does Robert get the feeling he's going to uphold his end?
Perception, empathy, standard difficulty. You think so. Money will buy the action of most men these days, corrupt as they may be.
Very well then. Satisfied with that, Robert will meet back with Elenid. Or has she been there that whole time, just silent?
She's been more towards the back, overseeing the events to make sure nothing goes south.
Alright.
So now then, do we have any other locations we need to go to? Or should we go back and wait for the others?
Honestly, I don't feel comfortable sleeping in the inn.
Yes, it is better to go get the things that we procured and ready to find a more suitable location for slumber.
I agree completely. So, in this case, we can head back to we can look around a bit.
It's probably a better idea to go back and make sure the chest and the axe are safe. Unknown territory and all.
We'll go get those then, and then find a place to hold up for the day.
Okay. It's simple enough to return to the inn and go downstairs. And you find the axe and chest are where you left them.
Though I am concerned about the young lady who assisted ourselves' well-being. You saw the glance the prince gave her. He was definitely not pleased of her telling us.
Quite. Where is she?
This was the last room I saw her in.
Robert will look around the room, seeing if there's any obvious clue where she might be. If not, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, go ahead and roll a perception investigation, standard difficulty. You do a fairly thorough search of the room, and you're fairly convinced there is nothing here that tells you anything about where she might have gone. But you've now searched it.
Robert will just shrug and try to pick up the axe.
Let's take a look here. You cannot pick it up. Not as you are. You could maybe drag it, maybe.
Do I know? I've lifted both. The chest is lighter, yes?
They're both about as heavy. I would say, if anything, the chest is a little bit heavier. A little bit. You can carry both. I mean,
Okay.
let me rephrase that. You can carry either. Carrying both would be difficult.
Alright.
Also very awkward.
Yes, very awkward.
And Robert silently struggles as he tries to pick up this massive weapon. Eventually he'll relent and just fake a cough, even though he has no reason to cough.
She smirks a bit at this and says, well, moving them about is going to be a bit on the more difficult side as of current, but
to say the least. Perhaps we should find a place first before hauling around such heavy objects.
yes, but to leave them completely unguarded means that they could very well walk off.
Recalling of when we entered, were there anyone inside the bar, particularly ones that looked strong?
There were a few burlier men, though most of them were quite drunk or asleep.
Well, saying nothing more, Robert head back up and see if he can find someone who would at least sobered up enough to assist them in this.
Once you get back up, and after you're kind of traveling around and bribing guards and such, it's around 2:30 in the morning, and there's still a few people up and about. Of course, they're on the scrawnier side. There's a couple men who, as I described, are burly, but they're quite asleep, with tipped over empty glasses in their hands, and the bartender kind of wiping away at the bar with some linen cloth. It's gotten fairly quiet in here.
These scrawny ones, do they look more sober?
A little bit. It's like two scrawny men kind of talking to each other, mugs in hand.
Okay. Robert figures he could get both of them to carry it. And so he'll walk up and greet them.
They look at you kind of side-eyed.
Good evening.
Oi, what you want?
Well, sorry to interrupt your night, but are you perhaps interested in making coin? Of course, nothing questionable.
They look at each other, and then back to you. What you got?
I simply need assistance carrying something heavy, and perhaps you can make this happen.
That's it. You want labor at 3 in the morning.
Yes, that's it. Although you may be carrying it for a decent amount of time, perhaps an hour or two. Of course, you will be well compensated for this.
Well, me and my mate are quite tired. I'd like to see what kind of coin you got first.
And of course, Robert will produce another bag that he so conveniently keeps for bribing. Of course, something reasonable, nothing absolutely insane.
Sure. Since you already did this one night, I'll have you roll your resources again, difficulty 6 this time.
Okay.
Absolutely you have the coin for this. You've just got a few of these stowed away for just such an occasion. And you, like a magician, withdraw yet another coin purse and set it down, which seems to jingle to the satisfaction of these men, who both take another sip, finishing off their ales, and stand up, just a little bit off balance, but they don't fall or anything.
It's nothing delicate, just don't hurt yourselves.
Alright, show us to it. They follow you.
And Robert will lead them inside to the axe. Or perhaps the chest.
Yeah, probably the chest. Elened would watch very carefully as they're approaching the axe.
So yeah, the two of them hoist up this chest, and you can see even for these two men, it's a little bit of a struggle. It definitely requires both of them working together. Neither are very strong, long and thin arms. All right, what you got in here, Rocks?
A lot of clothing.
Kind of chuckles at that. They start moving it back upstairs.
Elened, meanwhile, will go over and pick up the axe.
All right.
As it is of more import later on.
So, the group of you, strange as it appears, re-enter the inn. Are you leading them outside?
Yes.
Okay. So, a very well-dressed young man leads these two scrawny men who are carrying a soot-black chest as a young little woman walks out holding a great axe that is almost as big as she is.
I should note that she is also very much a twig of a woman.
It's a queer sight for anybody who happens to be looking at over here just after the witching hour, but stranger things have been seen, I suppose. And it's about this time that, as you're walking out with these men carrying the chest, that you see Cormac and Thomas running on foot back through the gates down the street, and you see them closing distance to you.
How far away from the stables, or at least where the carriage and my horse is kept?
Not very far. I would say 1/8 of a mile.
Well then, Robert will tell the men to place the chest down for a moment and rest. And run up to meet Cormac and Thomas.
Thomas, for his part, looks visibly relieved when he spots them in the street. And then deeply confused.
And as the group of you find each other, confusion and relief and all kinds of emotions come together, we will fade out and close the session for now, as it is 9:10 here, a little bit over 4 hours, and we will come back to this next week to pick it up.
No one died.
Yet.
Yay!
Nobody died. Good stuff, fun stuff. Been waiting to pull out some of that stuff for a while.
Huzzah!
Actual months.
Yeah. So I had fun. Hope you guys did.
I
That
did.
was fun.
Good. Good. That's like to hear. Let's do some entertaining role playing. We'll start with Elenid. Who did you enjoy the scenes in?
This time around, our good old Ventru buddy Tom. Just because the entire attempting to pressuring the prince, and then later on attempting to pressure the Sabbat anarchs, whatever they turn out to be, was amusing.
Wasn't really attempting to pressure the La Sombra lady, but kind of not die, mostly.
Yeah.
That was good stuff. I enjoyed both those scenes. Creepy, how about you?
Ponder. Come back to me. I'm going to think on this for a minute more.
Okay, Shadow.
Huh. I'll pass it to Cormac for a second.
Oh, you're killing me. Alright, Scott.
Well, I too am going to give it to Thomas Chamberlain. For being Ventru through and through.
Good
Sorry,
stuff.
I coughed. I'm a what now, through and through?
Ventru!
Oh, fair enough.
Bali!
Okay, we're back to you. Creepy.
I'm going to give it to Elenid. Just the scene in the basement with Amelia and her obvious concern for the neonate. Other reasons that I won't go into right now, but will become obvious later on.
Okay, cool. And Shadow.
Yeah, I'll give it to Thomas. He did well. He did certainly take the lead.
He's actively trying not to do that, though.
Is he
Too late. That's what you already are. You cannot escape.
born to it?
Even Cormac's deferring to you, standing behind you.
Cool. So I have 3 for Thomas and 1 for Elenid. So that's an extra experience for Thomas. Cool. And of course, Elenid, you can keep that and keep track of it as it will roll over. And I might get actually a reminder. I thought I wrote it down. I didn't write down, apparently, in a text document anywhere, the votes for last time. Does anyone have that?
I had 1 vote last time. I'm not sure about the others.
Okay.
I got 2.
And I had 1.
Okay.
And I had none.
All right, thank you. So, Elenid, you're up to 2. 1 more vote, and then you will also get an experience. Cool. Good stuff. Very much enjoying this. Very much looking forward to next game. So I'll talk to you guys later.
Word.
Later.
Word.
Cool. Have a good night.
Right.